if you're a consistent viewer of our channel, you know that a little while ago that I got stuck pretty good with our tractor down here. We were doing some work on this side of the property over here. We were making our way to create a new area for a ladder stand. And I just got stuck in a mud pit. Kind of took me by surprise because we had a pretty good drought going on down here and things were pretty dry. There was a little bit of rain a day before or two before we went over there, but I did not imagine it being that muddy over there. And where I was using a brush hog, the hillside comes down, and then the path I was creating had a little bit of an angle on it. So it kept pulling me into the side of that hillside as my wheels were spinning. Now we tried several ways of getting out. We had a plan A, a plan B, C, and then I think a D. Each escalated into the method we were using to get unstuck. But eventually we got out. We had to use both UTVs to do it. We had to use a tree to change direction to try to pull the tractor away from that hillside and simultaneously pull it forward and out. Kind of wasted a little bit of our time down there. It was very time consuming, but it basically was one whole episode for us. So that was some good content, I guess. It's not something we planned on doing. But then it occurs to me afterwards, you know, you always start thinking and second guessing yourself and wondering if you could have done something different. Was there an easier method of getting out, et cetera, et cetera. I did try using a bucket initially and then the bucket in the UTV. Should I have disconnected the brush hog on the back? Maybe that was creating enough weight to keep me pinned against the side of that hill. But as I was thinking about these methods, then it occurred to me, what if I was down here and doing that alone? How would I have gotten myself out? And maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I would have brought my truck down there. But being by myself, having the UTVs down there and a couple guys, and my UTV control is on the dashboard here. I do not have a remote for it. Some winches come with a remote. Some have a little plug that you plug into the side of your UTV and then you can control it so you can stand away from it. But that wouldn't have helped in this instance. And then other UTVs do have what's like a little key fob with a remote on there, an in and out button, and you can control it from, you know, up to 100 or a couple hundred feet away. And that to me would have helped out if I was by myself, because I could have been in a tractor, I could have been operating the wheels and maybe pushing with the bucket a little bit, and then trying to control the winch at the same time using a remote. So I started looking into it a little bit, and I picked up this kit on Amazon, which is basically going to attach under the hood to the solenoids that control the forward and reverse function of your winch. And then it comes with two remotes that you would keep in the glove box of your UTV. So if you had to operate this by yourself, there's an on-off button to turn it on, and then you have your in and your out. So I'm going to try to wire this up right now and see if I can add this to my UTV, and then that would be another function that would help me out if I'm by myself, or if I was in some deep water and I didn't want to be sitting in the UTV, or whatever instance that you would need to have a remote. As I said, I never had that feature on there. I just had to switch on my dashboard. And I believe when I installed this winch, it did come with a remote feature that is basically a plug with a long cable to it. But I think this is going to work out better. All right, so the kit just comes with the two transceivers here, and then this is the receiver, and these wires will connect to your solenoid and then also to your power. It's all labeled here in the diagram, and on your solenoid you'll have to determine which wires are for in and out. They're usually the smaller wires. Now when I first got my UTV, I put on this auxiliary fuse panel, so it's going to make my job a little bit easier, because on top there is the negative connections and on the side are positive. So all I had to do was attach the power wires to these connections. Having this auxiliary fuse panel makes it a lot easier to add mods to your UTV. Also makes shorter wire runs because you don't have to run everything back to the battery. Alright, so I got my negative and positive hooked up, and now I'm left to the two wires that go to the solenoid. I've seen other solenoids where it would have been two small wires that already would have had the terminals mounted on the outside, but this one seems like they are going inside of the solenoid itself, which maybe makes it a little bit more weather tight. So I'm going to have to splice into these two wires. So I wanted to keep this nice and neat when I installed this device, and when I saw the way the wiring was going to be, I ended up going home, ordering some connections to make it a little bit simpler and neater, and bringing them back here. It's only been a couple days turnaround, but basically I got these little connections here. My wires for the remote switch are going to go in here, and then the wires I'm splicing into are going to go here. And to help explain that a little bit better, so if you look at this diagram here, this basically shows you the way the wiring is going to go. So I did write down which wires are supposed to pair up with which one. So the green and the white go together, and the yellow and the black go together. So let's hook that in, and let's see how quickly this will go. But again, basically, these will clamp down on each other. You can see that. And then this here. Try to get you a better shot with my phone. I'm just cutting off the connector that came with the transmitter. I do not have to strip it in any ways. I just slide it in and crimp it down with some pliers until you hear a click. After that, I'm going to take a little electrical tape and just cover it up a little bit in case we get a heavy rain, just to keep it out of the weather. The black and the green wire are the ones that we're splicing into. Those go to my switch on the dashboard and run to the solenoid itself. Again, there's no stripping, and you just use a pair of pliers. Okay, so let's start the UTV up. Pulled out a little bit of the winch here. I've got my remote. We'll step away. All right, pretty cool. This should come in handy if I'm by myself. Then I have that same predicament again with my tractor. Hopefully not as bad, but I'll have this remote now to assist me, where before I just had the switch on the dashboard here. Again, pretty simple. You have an on-off switch for your remote here. If you don't use it for a period of time, it just shuts itself off automatically. When you hit the on switch and hold it, a little red light flashes on the top, LED light, a little bit easier to see when it's not so bright out. And then you have your controls. Just so there's no confusion, I did mark a little O for out and I for in case you ended up reversing wires or not, just so you know which way is which. Oh, and by the way, these connectors worked out great. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in those. But no fuss, no muss. Didn't have to strip any wires. Went pretty easy. I cut my evening hunt short because I heard that there was a comet that is possibly viewable right after sunset. So I went to a higher point a few miles away from our property on a ridge, and sure enough, I got a glimpse of it. I tried the night before, but it was too cloudy, and before I could get my good camera out to maybe get some better pictures, the clouds took over. The next few nights, the clouds would win night after night. Occasionally, I would see a glimpse of it through the clouds and get a quick picture, but not enough time to use my telescope. Later in the week, I returned to northern Ohio, and I was able to go to a spot that has a good view of the western sky, and I did get a few decent pictures here and there, also a time lapse here and there. I was still fighting with some city lights. Each night the comet would be a little higher in the sky and set a little later each day, and I was able to set up my telescope from home. It's getting dimmer each night, but I was able to capture this right above our pole barn. And finally, this takes us back down to southern Ohio, where I was able to get a nice time lapse, very dark sky, and just a beautiful evening with the Milky Way right on its tail. Literally. It's about 82 degrees out right now. I don't expect things are going to be moving too much this evening. I did just run down and check out the feeder, and apparently the batteries are dead in it. I checked out the other feeder earlier, and that one seems to be working okay. That one's going to need a little bit more corn before I go. I talked several times about staying connected down here, especially when I'm out hunting back here and I'm not at the house. At the house, we have Starlink, but up here in the woods, basically, I don't have a signal with my phone, but I can get one with a AT&T SIM card that I have hooked up to a Wi-Fi device, and then I power it with a small, rigid AC inverter. So it all works out pretty well. And you might say, well, can't you just get away for like 3 hours or 4 hours in the evening? And basically, no. So when I came down here yesterday and I was getting ready to go hunting, I got a message from our renters asking if we had a plunger. And I don't think we did. I asked Karen about it, and she says no. Actually, I don't think we've ever had a need in the 9 years that we've had the cabin where somebody's asked that. But anyways, they said the toilet was draining very slow. And they said it's not a big deal because we have a second bathroom that's upstairs. It's just a couple that's staying there right now. So not a big deal to them. Called my cleaner and asked her if she was going to be up in that area the next day, if she could just swing by with a plunger and give them a hand. And she did do that, but it didn't work apparently. So then I started thinking, well, maybe is the septic system starting to back up a little bit? The upstairs toilet is working fine. The downstairs one is having an issue. The cleaner's husband went and looked at it a little while later. He thinks there's something wrong with the flapper on the toilet. So the whole time I've been down here so far, I kind of been working with the toilet issue. And I hate to call like a plumber to come out because that'll be big bucks. The cleaner will kind of just check it out as a courtesy. The renters don't seem too upset about it. We're actually going down there in about 11 days from now. So it always seems like something breaks, and if you could just time it a little bit better to be coming down there or whatever. So I don't expect the next couple people to hold off. I think the next people that are coming are just getting married. They're on their honeymoon. They probably don't want to hear too much about my toilet woes. Today I had a maintenance guy just check over the septic tank really quick. He was in the neighborhood. Just asked him if he would pop the lid and just check the clean out. And there was nothing backed up in there, and it appeared to be all right. So we know the septic is not a problem. I texted our cleaner again because today is a changeover day. She was going to have her husband come out and look at it again. And I asked her if they carried a snake or anything or something that they could ream out the drain of the toilet. And she said they have a 25-foot and a 50-foot. So I knew she was coming to clean today. She said she'd bring it up there. And while I'm up here, we texted back and forth. They snaked it out, and it's working fine. So apparently it was just jammed up with too much toilet paper or something along those lines, and we're back in business again. The people coming up tonight, the ones on their honeymoon, won't have any issues. I'm going to text them in a little bit I gave them a heads up that there could be a problem, and I'm going to text them now saying that the problem's been alleviated. But there's always little things here and there where we pretty much have to stay in contact, mostly with the cabin in Tennessee. And you'd be surprised if you sat up here for 3, 4 hours, came back down to the house, and then went back on Starlink. And there's always some sort of emergency with the HOA or something happening. So that's why I stay connected. Just to reiterate again why I go through these hassles, but just another great perk of having some vacation rental property. Seen this little guy wandering around about a half hour before sunset. Kind of looks like a spike. Have to wait for it to get a little closer. But that is going to do it for today. I appreciate everybody watching. Hope you enjoy and subscribe to these videos. Click on that little bell when you want to know when a new one is coming out. And keep an eye on us. Take care, everybody. We'll be back here next week. Also, we got a gift guide coming up. A little bit of news on JD. What's going on with the recall. So we'll see you next week.